We're back from our holiday break with a bit of a mishmash episode as we look at some news that happened over the holiday weekend, look ahead to the future for what could be in store in the NBA for Trayce Jackson-Davis, and try to get you guys caught up on all the stuff related to IU athletics, both current and present on today's episode.
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? It is Monday, December 27th. This is Locked On Hoosiers, your daily source for IU athletics news, analysis, reaction, previews, recaps. Today it'll be a little bit of everything news related. I'm your host as always, Jacob Rude. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Hoosiers part of your day and your first listen every day. Remember, Locked On Hoosiers is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube at Locked On Hoosiers. Today's episode is brought to you by Sonos. Sonos is the official sponsor of ESPN College Football. Go to Sonos.com to learn more. As always, guys, you can subscribe to Locked On Hoosiers wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Follow us at LO_Hoosiers on Twitter and at Locked On Hoosiers on Instagram. As I mentioned, it's a bit of a mix and match and whatever type of episode today. The holidays, with IU football not being in a bowl game, so on and so forth. There wasn't a ton of news that happened over the holiday weekend, not expected, or not unexpected, I should say. So I pieced together as much as I could. I had a topic I wanted to talk about last week, never really had the chance, and that is kind of Trayce Jackson-Davis's future in the NBA, his pro prospects. I know it's out into the distance, and I am all for appreciating Trayce while he's here, but I'm still interested. I'm an NBA fan, and I am just kind of interested as to how others view his pro prospects. I used to follow kind of the NBA draft scene more. I don't as much. I have a sense of what Trayce's pros and cons are related to the NBA, but I started looking around today just to get a sense of where he's rated on draft boards. It's a little, I won't say all over the place, but it varies a little bit. But the general consensus is that Trayce is probably right now a late second round draft pick. Rookiescale.com put together a consensus big board. It included pretty much anything you can think of: ESPN, The Athletic, the Stepien, which is a great site for those of you interested in the NBA draft, Tankathon, some of you might have heard of, Yahoo, Bleacher Report, Chad Ford, Locked On's own Chad Ford, just tons and tons of information. It compiled all of it and makes a consensus big board. And right now, Trayce Jackson-Davis comes in at number 55. There are 60 picks in the NBA draft. There are reasons to believe that he may not be drafted at the end of the draft. Basically, guys will tell teams they would rather the player go undrafted so that he can kind of make his decision and sign a contract somewhere where it's a best or better fit for him. But once you get in that range late in the second round, it's not necessarily a guaranteed he will even be drafted. So that gives you a sense. If you look at specific places, Draft Express is by far the most reliable. The guys over at now with ESPN, nobody scouts as much as they do. Currently, kind of in that same vein, they have Trayce Jackson-Davis going 54th, which, interestingly, that is the Indiana Pacers draft pick right now, which I don't have to tell you guys would be a lot of fun. I really, really enjoyed getting to watch Vic Oladipo when he played in Indiana. I would love getting to watch Trayce. Right now, though with Draft Express, they do not take kind of the needs of the team into account. This is essentially a big board until they get kind of closer to the draft. So that is more saying that he is 54th on their big board. Should also mention that while there's technically 60 picks in the draft each year, there's actually only 58 because the Bucks and Heat had to forfeit picks for tampering violations. So even less picks for Trayce to potentially be selected. But again, it's a lot of times almost better for guys not to get drafted at the end there. A couple other places. The Athletic, Sam Vecini is another great guy who does a ton of research when it comes to the draft. He has Trayce at number 64. Tankathon has him at number 52. So while there's some variation to it, you can see it's right now late second round, even one of the better undrafted guys. The pros, when you're looking at him for the NBA game, he's good enough defensively that you could play him as a small ball five. But that in and of itself is kind of an issue in that he is an undersized five. So he's either going to have to improve as a shooter or become really good defensively. But he can protect the rim. We talked about that last week. His development as a rim protector, as a shot blocker, has been massive for this IU team and really good for his NBA prospects. He's a great decision maker out of the post. We've seen that. You can run stuff through him just as a playmaker, not necessarily as the number one option, but depending on where he lands, he's a good playmaker. We've talked about his coolness, his calmness. He can score in the paint with ease, obviously, and his general athleticism is going to be a bonus. Pair his athleticism with his IQ, and he's gonna succeed somewhere. I don't know necessarily the NBA, but he's gonna find success because he's just too smart and too athletic. The areas he's gonna have to improve, he's going to have to become a better shooter. Point blank and simple. That's going to be the first thing every NBA team will tell him. We saw Thomas Bryant have a glow up in that regard. He is a knockdown 3-point shooter now. I don't know that Trayce will be that good, but he has kind of that athleticism. I don't want to say a similar type of body, but maybe a similar type of build as what Thomas Bryant did. There's a path where he could become a good shooter. His mechanics don't look bad. So in general, he's going to have to expand his game offensively, though, as a scorer. Right now, it's a lot of stuff, just strictly backing guys down in the post, which is terrific for the Hoosiers. That is not a bad thing, but in the NBA, that is not how the game is played anymore. So he's just going to have to expand his game, whether it's shooting threes, whether it's scoring out of the mid-range, things of that nature. He has to become just kind of quicker defensively. That, I think, is something that can come when he's able to just fully focus on being an NBA player, get working with trainers, with developmental staff, improving on his body. I could see that improving. He's not bad defensively necessarily, but he's going to have to bulk up a bit as well as getting quicker, which seems counter productive or an oxymoron. But those are two things that they're going to tell him. His foot speed will have to get quicker. He'll have to get a little stronger in the upper body to fight or battle with some of those big guys. He's kind of a tweener of sorts, an undersized five. He doesn't have the range to be a four. So we'll see how that plays out in previous years, or in, I guess, a different era of the NBA. That was almost a death sentence if you were called a tweener. The NBA's positionless basketball makes it so guys can get away with being a tweener, and sometimes those guys are valued. Just getting 6'8", 6'9", 6'10" guys on the court that are just generally good and figuring things out from there. So we will see. I know that's way off into the future, but I was just curious. I started looking around to see what Trayce's pro prospects were. I thought I'd just kind of share some of my thoughts and findings with you guys. We have some transfer news for the football team. Obviously, we continue to, as well as some pro IU stuff. The rest of the show is going to be pretty short as we kind of piece things together from the weekend. Before we start with that, though, guys, this holiday season, grab the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, or even better than a candy bar. Built Bar is filled with so much holiday goodness, rich, decadent flavor, covered in chocolate, but amazingly low in calories, sugar, net carbs, and fat, while high in protein. You guys get the best of both worlds, delicious and healthy. So many flavors you'll have a hard time choosing. You're going to go with raspberry or mint brownie, cherry or double chocolate, cookies and cream, or peanut butter brownie. If you guys like some of those marshmallowy treats around the holidays, you need to get your hands on Built Bar Puffs. They're light and fluffy and marshmallowy through and through. Different flavors, all covered in chocolate. Tastes so good you won't believe they're filled with protein. Go to built.com, use promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order today. That's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. Thanks again, guys, for making Locked On Hoosiers your first listen every day. Make sure to check out the Ultimate College Football Playoff Preview 2021, local experts and betting advice, and draft analysis. The most comprehensive college football playoff preview is underway. Be sure to go look that up before the games this upcoming weekend as the college football playoff kicks off. Some transfer news. Reese Taylor, we mentioned, was transferring away from the program. That one stung a bit. He was the Hoosiers' kind of number 2, number 3 cornerback, depending on who was healthy and whatnot this season. He transfers away. That itself was already a bit of a sting. He transferred to Purdue, he announced over the weekend. That one's always going to sting more. It's interesting. Him and Samson James both go from the Hoosiers to Purdue. Listen, as much as we fans put stock into that rivalry, it's not to the kids. So they're just looking for what they feel is the best situation for them. Maybe Reese Taylor was interested in staying around home. West Lafayette and Bloomington aren't that far away from Indianapolis, so maybe that was what he was looking for. I wish Reese Taylor all the best. I wish Samson James all the best individually, and I hope the team goes 0-10, 0-12, however many games they're going to end up playing. Miles Jackson listed IU in his top 4 over the weekend. Some of you may have seen. Jackson is a linebacker / edge rusher from UCLA. His final 4 were IU, East Carolina, Georgia State, and Jackson State with Deion Sanders. He's a former 3-star recruit. The Hoosiers did not recruit him basically at all before he committed to UCLA. He suffered a season-ending knee injury 1 game into his true freshman year in 2020. He does still have 4 years of eligibility remaining due to every player getting the COVID year free. So this could be a long-term kind of play for the Hoosiers as they potentially would land Jackson. He could fill a hole because James Miller, who a name some of you might remember from this past season, he backed up Cam Jones and Micah McFadden. He entered the transfer portal for the Hoosiers as well. He will be on his way out. That's going to be a really, really big hole the Hoosiers are going to have to fill. There is nobody, no 2 players that are going to be able to fill it. But the more guys that transfer away, the tougher it's going to be to replace that overall production, let alone the production you're going to get from or the production you're going to need to replace guys like McFadden and Cam Jones. I know McFadden got a lot of the love, and rightfully so, throughout the year, but Cam Jones was also really, really good. Hoosiers obviously got Bradley Jennings Jr., who I think will probably come in and start from day one as a linebacker. Came from Miami. But overall, it'll be interesting to see how they handle filling that position moving forward. We're going to look at we had a handful of former Hoosiers signed for various different places. Victor Bezerra, Tigre Scales, Noah Vonleh. Look at some pro Hoosiers, get you caught up on that as well as we wrap up today's episode. But BetOnline has you guys covered this holiday season with more props and odds and lines than ever before as football continues to make its march to the pro football playoffs and through the college bowl season. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the sports action this season. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today. Receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code LOCKEDON to receive your bonus. So whether it's basketball, football, NHL, boxing, UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games, don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline's the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. So don't wait to take advantage of all the new amazing offers. BetOnline, where the game starts. Handful of tidbits to finish out today's show. Victor Bezerra announced he was signing with the Chicago Fire in the MLS. It's a homegrown deal with the Fire. He is he's going to be an interesting player in the MLS, I think. I know his kind of senior season was disappointing, frustrating for him individually. He had that injury early on. The Hoosiers and him never got going in the middle part of the season. Eventually, he kind of hit his stride a bit in the back end of it, but I know that he and the team both would have wanted more. But overall, I'm excited to see this. It's a place close to Indiana, so some of you may be able to go up and see him if you're around Chicago on a weekend vacation or anything like that. But an interesting spot for him to land. He is signed through the 2024 season with an option for 2025. So he's going to be around in Chicago for quite a while. Will be fun to see him develop there. Hopefully become a bit of a star for the Fire. Tigre Scales, mentioned just before the break. One of the most fun players I've watched at Indiana. He signed with the Bengals practice squad. He's bounced around a bit from practice squad to practice squad in the NFL, just kind of on those fringes. It's an interesting time in sports with all the COVID, the positive cases and players going into health and safety protocols. It gives guys like Scales, like Juwan Morgan that we mentioned last week, gives them a chance at playing, making an impact. I watched a bit of Juwan Morgan on Sunday evening. They got blown out by the Cavs. The Raptors barely have healthy bodies. We talked about how much fun it will be for Juwan and OG to play together. OG is in health and safety protocols. He could test out anytime. Their rule is you have to have 2 negative tests, PCR tests 24 hours apart. The NBA's rule on that. So he could test out at any point if he can produce those negative test results. But right now, seems unlikely that OG and Juwan will play together in Toronto unless they bring Juwan back for a second 10-day hardship contract, which then we will see. But weird times in pro sports, but it is giving people like Juwan, like Tigre, like lots of others a chance to play again. Noah Vonleh a name that I'm sure elicits lots of responses from IU fans. He signed with the Shanghai Sharks. I missed this. He didn't sign anywhere in the NBA, and I was kind of waiting on his name being mentioned as a replacement signing. He went the other route. He went to the Shanghai Sharks. He scored 23 points with 15 rebounds in his debut. That league is known for offense and not playing any sort of defense. So a lot of guys go there and put up gaudy numbers. I'm sure if you guys follow Vonleh, if you follow the Pro Hoosiers Twitter account, you will see some gaudy stats in the coming weeks. That is what that league does. That is not Noah Vonleh finding some secret formula, MJ secret stuff or anything while in China. Romeo Langford actually had back-to-back starts over the past week. On December 22nd, he had 11 points, 9 rebounds, and a win over the Cavs in a start. He came back on Christmas against the Bucks. Some of you might have watched that. He had 5 points, 2 rebounds, 2 steals. But Giannis Antetokounmpo was dominant and led a comeback for the Bucks to pick up that victory. But while the stats still aren't there, I've said that a couple times, he has a role with this team. He is anchoring down a spot on the wing, and he's getting minutes right now. Another situation where some COVID cases have allowed him a bigger role, but he was already serving a role with this team. Again, it's not the role you would expect from somebody drafted, I believe, in the lottery, in the teens in the first round, but ultimately he's playing in the NBA. Anybody that plays in the NBA is an elite of the elite player, so excited for him. I know things didn't work out maybe how everybody wanted at Indiana, but I'm excited for him and what he's been able to do now that he is healthy in Boston. Thanks again, guys, for making Locked On Hoosiers your first listen every day. We'll be back tomorrow. Not entirely sure what we'll talk about, but we do have a basketball game coming up on Wednesday. Now, for your second listen, head on over to Locked On Bets, your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs, hosted by your boy Q, with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. Appreciate all the love you guys have given us. Follow us on Twitter. Subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already. Rate and review to help us out a ton. But most importantly, guys, have a great Monday and